What keeps you up at night? For me, the answer has to be climate change. There are so many issues facing us today, but none more dangerous to life on Earth than climate change. It was 35 degrees here in beautiful Vlorë a couple of minutes ago. That's 95 degrees. At 34 degrees Celsius, that's a little over 93 degrees Fahrenheit. The temperatures keep rising. Man-made climate change is keeping things like the heat dome currently over Europe, the deaths, the misery, the additional bills for air conditioning. And the thing is that this heat dome, this heat wave, is just one example of what we are going to face moving forward. The temperatures, in other words, are just going to keep rising. And the weather patterns are going to keep changing. But I'll discuss that a little bit later. I wanted to talk to you first about the tipping points and the polycrisis we currently find ourselves in. For those of you who watched the first episode of Thinking About the Next 25 Years, you remember that I introduced you to the concepts of tipping points and the polycrisis. Just to give you a quick recap on that, tipping points are a series of events that once they happen, they cascade and cause other things to happen. A polycrisis just means that instead of a individual crisis, you have a bunch of different crises that are all related. So climate change is an example of both a polycrisis and tipping points. The big tipping points that we face right now in regards to climate change, and there are 5, impact the entire global economy and all life on Earth. The first of the tipping points I want to discuss is coral die-off. When the corals in the sea die, whole ecosystems and biospheres degrade. So other plants and animal life that depend on the corals die off as well. And the system just keeps compounding and cascading. The one you hear most about as far as tipping points is the melting of the ice sheets, which is a big concern because the ice itself reflects sunlight back into the atmosphere and out. It also helps cool the planet. And when these things melt, it's going to just create more issues. The sea level will rise and impact nearly every shoreline in the world. Most damaging, though, is that to the eastern seaboard of the American states. The third is the deforestation and die-off of other ecosystems on land, such as the Amazon rainforest. The reason that is such a big issue is that I'm sure you've heard this before, the Amazon is the lungs of the planet. Well, in addition to that, besides all the wildlife, the flora and the fauna, the Amazon actually is a heat sink and a carbon sink. It takes out, naturally, carbon from the air. And a lot of that carbon ends up in the plants and in the ground. When a system like the Amazon is degraded, the Amazon no longer becomes a heat sink and a carbon sink, but actually a global emitter. All of the carbon that was once in plants, trapped in the grounds through root systems, then become vulnerable to escape up into the atmosphere, causing even more global warming. The other is related, and that's the permafrost layer degrading. Permafrost also protects because it is a carbon sink. And if we lose things like the areas in Russia, the areas in the Arctic Circle, Alaska, the permafrost will keep putting more pollutants and more carbon into the atmosphere. All of these systems are cascading and a polycrisis. And there are a lot of other reasons why this is all happening. Obviously, the biggest reason is man-made climate change, the use of fossil fuels, the poisoning of our environment, the destruction of natural wetlands like Sazan Island there, and Zvernik beyond, which Ivanka Trump and Jared Kushner want to go and turn into a multi-billion luxury resort for the rich, destroying the ecology in the process. So things like, the other one I forgot to mention was the changing of water systems around the world. The AMOC, for example, the Atlantic Meridional Ocean current that brings warm air from the Gulf of Mexico up to Europe. If that system fails, Europe could be heading for another ice age. So all these systems are related, and they really go and show how bad this planet can get. The temperature has risen to 1.35 degrees Celsius since the Industrial Revolution. I know that doesn't sound a lot, but it only takes 1.5 to 2 degrees Celsius for the worst of these tipping points to set off a chain reaction that basically makes life, not only for us, but for all species, a lot harder. And we're getting there, folks. The world is doing some mitigation. The world has invested a lot in solar power, wind, and alternate energy sources. But then you have places like Donald Trump's America, where he espouses that climate change doesn't even exist, and giving more preferential treatment to oil and gas and quote-unquote clean coal, as if such a thing even exists. So there are a lot of issues today. And if we don't tackle this now, before it's too late, we're going to regret it. Our actions have consequences. And until individuals, societies, politicians, and governments accept that reality, we're putting ourselves and our future generations at greater risk. I'm just talking and walking here on the beach here at Vlorë. For more information on these topics, watch my full-length video on tipping points. But the point is, there's something we can do about it. We have to go and talk to our politicians, tell them what our concerns are. We have to go and talk to our friends and our family and express our outrage that not enough is being done to protect our planet. And we have to mitigate things on an individual basis, using electricity when we can, driving less. I'm from Pittsburgh, and I know a lot of people who will spend 5 or 10 minutes just going around the Walmart parking lot looking for a closer parking spot when they could have been there in 2 or 3 by walking. The convenience culture, the fact that we don't have any free time is all impacting these things. And it's just making things worse. We have to do as much as we can, whenever we can, individually and collectively, to mitigate climate change. Because the world keeps heating up faster than we can mitigate it. And our actions right now are going to impact the world for tens of thousands of years. Now, the purpose of this video is to discuss what the next 25, 30 years looks like. So let's discuss what happens if we don't do those mitigations and the temperatures keep rising to 1.5 or 2 degrees Celsius. What that means is that most of our coastal cities are going to face increasing pressure from the oceans themselves. You're going to have more flooding. A lot of places will be non-habitable for humans. Whole cities could be completely drowned. Cities like Miami, Florida, but even more important, New Orleans, Louisiana, both cities I love, are eventually going to feel the impacts of climate change and be flooded permanently if we don't do something about it now. Some of the largest cities on Earth are at the coasts. We're talking about moving millions and millions and millions of people to higher climes. The cost associated with that is so much greater than the cost of mitigation in the first place. And that's just one example of the cost that we're going to face. The other issues are decreasing fresh water supply. Areas that once had snow packs year-round are drying up, not feeding into our rivers and streams and lakes. When that happens, a lot of the world is going to face dire situations with fresh water. And a lot of places are already facing that reality today. In addition to that, with water, then we have agriculture issues. When a place dries up, it becomes less hospitable to agriculture and plants and the foodstuffs that we rely on. Whole crops, whole species could die off. I'm talking about things that are already at risk. Things like our coffee, our chocolate. And if you've noticed the prices of those things, they keep going up. Well, that's one of the main reasons. If we can't get climate change under control, we're going to be able to lose a lot of our variety. Not only in nature, not only in the flora and fauna, but our food products. And what remains is going to be even more expensive. Which leads me to my next issue, quality of life. People's lives are going to be impacted directly. Their wallet, their pocketbook. As more and more people are moving to fewer and fewer places, as water becomes exorbitant, as foodstuffs become exorbitant in certain places, more and more people are going to face destitution, poverty, and for those who are able to support themselves, find higher prices for nearly everything. Reasons like that are why I call it a polycrisis, because everything feeds into itself. And of course, the biggest culprits, climate change deniers, the billionaires who own the oil industry, the gas industry, the coal industry, the media that pushes lies like climate change is a hoax. The more people hear that, the more some of them believe it. You tell a lie enough, some people just believe whatever they hear. We need to be more literate in our media biases. We need to understand what's actually happening in the world. We need to take care to make sure that we are as informed as possible. As I say in my social contract of the commons, things like willful ignorance and apathy are sins. Because as I see them, they are. In addition to all that, you're going to see a lot more premature deaths of humans, as well as other species. And the mortality rate could start declining. It's been going up over the past 50 years in most places. But as things get more expensive, as more people suffer from heat stroke and exhaustion and all the other illnesses, maladies, famines, dying of thirst, you're gonna see mortality conceivably going up as well. People will live shorter lives, more brutal lives, warmer lives, all because we are not responsible for taking care of our planet. Well, that's wrong. We are responsible. We should be the stewards of our planet. Not extract. Use every bit of land for some productivity, for making the rich even richer. And like I said with the polycrisis, things like AI are just exacerbating these things. A simple query to an AI can use up to 500 or 550 milliliters of water. Because the data centers where the AIs are stored, quote unquote, use a lot of water to cool the computer servers down. The growth of the infrastructure of data centers is just getting larger and larger, more and more, taking up more and more energy, which is just going to exacerbate climate change all the more. And yes, I've heard the stories that climate change could be mitigated with using AI, and it could make things a lot better. I'm not going to discount that, but the point is, it's making things worse now. And to gamble on a technology that may prove to be beneficial in the future while destroying the very thing that it's supposed to save is lunacy. Anytime you hear somebody say, oh, things are going to be better because of, or we're doing this and this, or doing an impact statement, or analyzing this, or creating a blue ribbon commission, things like that just mean they're not actually solving the problem, and conceivably just making things worse by pushing it off to future generations. Well, I don't know about you. I don't know if you have kids or not, but they won't appreciate that kicking the can down the road, especially when it's too late. This is just me. My name is Scott, by the way, if we haven't met yet. A youngish expat who left America because of the quality of life, because of the costs. My mother was basically killed because she was kicked out of a nursing home with pneumonia. 12 days later, she was dead in the hospital. The vitriol in our politics, the polarity, and I'm not necessarily blaming one political party or one leader. This is beyond that scope. But if we really want to make the world sustainable, to make it a place that everyone can thrive, we have to deal with climate change mitigation now. I've done a lot of series of videos on these topics, including the end game, what a Trump win in 2024 would mean for the environment. And I'm sorry to say that most of that has come to pass, or is coming to pass. I've done videos on Polycrisis, as well as tipping points, and what they call the Anthropocene. I think I pronounced that wrong. The 6th level extinction event considered caused by human global warming and the use of fossil fuels. My next video is going to be on AI, and again, how this is all related to the Polycrisis, but also talk to you about the tipping points involved with AI. What happens if, for example, AI becomes sentient? That would be a tipping point. So, thank you very much for watching, guys. Let me know what you thought of this video. I wanted to go and just be honest and upfront with you as I'm walking here in Vlorë. I didn't want to do a voiceover for this video because I wanted to talk to you person to person. And I thought this would be the best way to do that. Thank you very much for watching. Please let me know in the comments what you think. And if you agree with this, share. Take care, guys. Have a blessed day.